And here we are again. Wednesday is my favorite day, I have decided. I'm Anthony Davis, and he is Ron Filipkowski. And welcome to Uncovered, where we uncover far-right propaganda in America. We've got so much to talk about today. We're going to be looking at Kari Lake a little bit later, and Lauren Boebert being removed from the theater for vaping, amongst other things. Tucker Carlson wanting Greg Abbott to shoot migrants. We've got Eric Trump suggesting that black people now love Trump. But I thought we'd start, Ron, with the chaos that's happening today in Congress, of course, and yesterday, and certainly the last week, with this sham impeachment and the pressure being put on Kevin McCarthy. Really, does he even like being the speaker? I don't know that he does. Maybe he's regretting the whole thing. Anyway, you've been tweeting about it, so tell us what's happening right now.
I think he likes being speaker. I think he likes the title. I don't think it's one of those things where you love the position and you love the title and the trappings, but you don't actually love doing the job.
Yeah.
I think similar to Donald Trump in that respect. I don't think Donald Trump especially liked doing the day-to-day work of being president, but I think he absolutely loved being president. It's the same thing with McCarthy. But you know, he made deals with the devil. He had to make a deal with Matt Gaetz and some of the other real crazy far right people in the Freedom Caucus to get the speakership, and now they've got him just like a puppet on their string, threatening him every other day with being removed. So and now he's got to march to their drum, to the beat of their drum.
Now let's be clear who is the puppet master in all of this. Because Donald Trump has had secret meetings with Elise Stefanik and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And as far as I'm aware, he really is. I mean, he's so furious about being impeached twice. Like, he cannot get his head around why it happened, even though it wasn't ratified in the Senate. He is desperate for Joe Biden to be impeached. That really is kind of something that he has to get done in the lead up to 2024, right?
There's no question. I don't think people like Matt Gaetz and these other people are especially interested in impeaching Joe Biden. That's not really the top of their agenda. They have other agendas that they're trying to accomplish. That's why I was talking to a reporter with Washington Post the other day, and I said, really, what this Freedom Caucus reminds me of, there's an old quote about the 1978 Red Sox, how none of them liked each other and they all had their own agendas. And the saying was, that 25 cabs pulled up to every game for 25 players, and they all left in a separate cab and went to separate places. And that's sort of like these people. They all have different individual agendas that they're trying to accomplish. But yes, the person who's really pushing this impeachment is Donald Trump, and he's using, Marjorie Greene, Matt Gaetz, and a few others to just poke McCarthy whenever he gets out of line.
And this also is connected to my view about Trump kind of falling through the fingers of justice when it comes to all of these indictments, is that, he still wields quite a lot of power, and he's already trying to push back these court appearances. And this, again, is something, it's a roadblock, isn't it? It kind of gives him more chance of winning and gives the kind of Trump brand more leverage.
Yeah, the whole point is to distract Biden and to distract the Biden campaign and the Biden administration, and to just throw this nonsense at the wall. And the idea is they know they can't prove these allegations. They know the Senate will never convict. They really know impeachment will never even pass the House. That's not the point. The point is just to throw enough nonsense out there into the ecosystem, into the bloodstream of America, hoping that it at least influences some voters. And I think that it already has. You do already hear from moderate voters, well, geez, it seems like they're all crooks, yeah. And that's what that's what Trump is really looking for, right? Is that fatigue, saying, oh, they're all dirty,
And unfortunately for Biden, because he doesn't take on these issues directly, especially the stuff about bank accounts and money coming from Burisma and $2 million, like all of these kind of things that have no place in reality, but they make a very good argument in a kind of parallel universe, and that ecosystem where those MAGA Republicans and undecided voters might be getting their media will hear all that and they're not going to make the time to investigate it themselves. They put their trust in lawmakers.
Well, because what they have as their proof, is Hunter saying certain things like, my dad's getting a cut, or, my dad's involved. Yeah, I can, it's Hunter talking nonsense while being a drug addict.
Yeah.
What they don't have is that next step, which is actually showing that any money went to Joe Biden, that Joe Biden actually did anything to help Hunter Biden. That's the part they can't prove, but it's enough for them to put out there that the president's son was saying these things.
Yeah.
To them,
seeds of doubt.
That's all they need.
Right. Yeah. And Joe Biden's not an idiot. He's not going to take bungs and bribes. The guy's he was a public defender, spent his whole life in public service. Famously he said to Hunter Biden when he got that Burisma job, "I hope you know what you're doing." He's not an idiot, is he? He's not going to involve himself and compromise his work as a politician.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Hunter did not know what he was doing.
It's so frustrating. I mean, I wish, I have a lot of empathy for Hunter Biden.
I know you do.
And I know that you don't. And that is why our friendship is so interesting. But, I really feel like he should just disappear into the shadows, because even like selling these paintings, terrible art, and it's like, it's just enough already. Because the thing is, when you advertise a painting for $150,000 and it's crap, the only reason it's worth that much is because it's got Biden in the corner. And that, again, it adds collateral for the right and the far right to say that he is using his father to try and, profit in some way. Not that the Trump family didn't ever do that. I mean, come on.
I completely understand why Joe, in his twilight years here, wants his son to be around, especially given what's happened to his other children.
Yes.
And so I understand that. At the same time, I pray that he's not in the White House anymore or on the campaign trail. I just pray that will not happen, and I dread that it is going to happen.
Do you know, something else occurred to me yesterday when I was writing some stuff about this. We talk about Hunter being compromised and being an addict and all this stuff, but his mum died in a car crash, and no one seems to make that connection. They always like, oh, Joe Biden lost his wife in a car, but Hunter Biden lost his mum. Now, the trauma associated with that is enough to make anybody's, future completely compromised, and for your mental health to be, we are all so delicate, and we all handle things differently. And that story about him losing his mum is not something that I've ever heard reported, really.
Well, and he also lost his brother around the time that all of this stuff was happening, when he was addicted to drugs. So I mean, I do have empathy to some degree for Biden, but for Hunter. But I'm familiar enough with his antics to not excuse it completely, and chalk it all up to those things, because I also think that there was an element of greed and recklessness involved, and so that's also part of it. But
could
but
replace
I
greed
completely
with grief,
understand.
though. Those two words in this case, greed and grief, might be interchangeable.
Maybe. Yeah.
Let's look at this video of Matt Gaetz in Congress addressing his views about Kevin McCarthy to Kevin McCarthy. He's not supposed to do that. He's supposed to do it to the speaker. But this was a very interesting moment where it showed that there is total mutiny in the Republican Party, and this split between these extremist MAGA Republicans holding Kevin McCarthy to account. Here it is.
And let me alert the country, a motion to vacate might not pass at first, but it might before the 15th vote. And if Democrats bail out McCarthy, as they may do, then I will lead the resistance to this uniparty and the Biden-McCarthy-Jeffries government that they are attempting to build. I know that Washington isn't a town where people are known for keeping their word. Well, Speaker McCarthy, I'm here to hold you to yours. I yield back.
Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair and not to a perceived viewing audience. Members are further reminded not to engage in personality towards the president.
It's a bit late for all that, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Saying that to Matt Gaetz as he's walking out means nothing. It means nothing to him. That moment was extremely interesting, and you got to put it in the bigger context here, which is, look, Gaetz was about to start a rebellion that day. Kevin knew that he was going to give a big speech that day around 11 o'clock was the plan. That was his time slot. And it was going to be about McCarthy not coming through on any of his promises, including opening up impeachment of Biden. So what happened was, about an hour before Gaetz was supposed to give this big speech ripping McCarthy, finds out and scrambles and runs out to the cameras and announces impeachment. And it was completely unplanned, unscripted, like the press didn't know. He literally hit the panic button to try and cut take the wind out of the sails of Gaetz. So what you see there is Gaetz now is furious about an hour after that. Basically what he's saying is, Kevin, you're not fooling anybody. I'm still mad. I still don't like you. And even though you came out and claimed that you're going to do impeachment, I'm not buying it, and I'm not going away. So McCarthy, thought he maybe was going to calm things down, and maybe he did with some of the members, but Gaetz is letting him know, like, this is not over.
The sad part of all of this is that, the constituents of these people, they don't care about any of this stuff. It's nothing to do with them. This is just party political politics playing out on Capitol Hill. And in terms of, if you were to look to Matt Gaetz or even Kevin McCarthy and know that they were your representative, you'd just be so disappointed that this is how they were choosing to spend their time at work. When your city might be crumbling or whatever. Okay, we've got a lot to get through, so we're going to do a kind of quick fire on some of this stuff. Kristi Noem is the next one. She went on Newsmax. You claim that she's trying to kind of put in her bid for Donald Trump's VP. Would you say that's what she's about to do in this clip?
Oh, absolutely. This was her moment. Trump was killing two birds with one stone here. He was going up to get a good, have a good talk or whatever, get some FaceTime with Kristi Noem and decide, if she's going to be one of the finalists for VP. And then he was going to, jet down to Iowa to attend the Iowa State football game, which we'll get to later. So, those two states are pretty close, so that he was going to, knock those two things out. So when this was announced, Noem immediately launched into, hey, I think I'd be a great VP, and all the speculation started. And I do think she could, it's either, I believe it's between her and Elise Stefanik. I'm convinced of that. It's not Lake, it's not Green, it's not all the sexy, people on social media, what they think. I think it comes down to Stefanik or Noem, and it's going to be like a coin toss. And Noem is making her case here. She clearly wants the job.
Let's take a look at her.
Who were asked, you would consider it, at least.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I would in a heartbeat, just because, you respect the position and the person who asks you to do something, and then see if you really believe that you could make a difference. President Trump needs a strong partner if he's going to take back the White House, and he's going to need somebody who knows what it's like to run a business, to be an employee, earn a paycheck, but also having a wife, mom, and a grandma isn't bad either. And I think that kind of perspective would weigh in very well on a lot of policy decisions.
Well,
so it's pretty clear that she wants it. But in terms of the voters, how much do people know her? How well known is she around the country?
I think she's fairly well known. The issue is the MAGA base going to accept whoever he chooses? That's clearly the first threshold. And number two is, can she help? He's looking for two things in a running mate. One, be accepted by the MAGA base. Well, three things. Two, complete undying loyalty. She checks both those boxes. And three, this is why I think it comes down to Stefanik or Noem, somebody who's going to appeal to his biggest weakness, what is Donald Trump's biggest weakness is moderate women, suburban women, who hate Donald Trump. He polls like 24%. So can his running mate sort of make it palatable, make his ticket palatable to some of those women, at least a little slice of them? And you know, Elise spends all of her focus and all of her time in Congress on exactly that set of voters, women voters. And Noam doesn't, but I think that he thinks that, you know, Noam has the right set of, and that's where you heard her talking about mother, grandmother, small business owner. You know, she's playing to that. She understands that that's what Trump is looking for in a running mate. So I think she would be for what he wants, she would be a very good choice.
Does he find her attractive enough now, though? That's really going to be the big question.
You know, that's why a lot of people think he won't pick Stefanik.
Yeah, it's so offensive. Really,
I mean, I'm not saying this. I'm just telling you what Republicans are saying.
But that's why I thought it might be Carrie Lake, because, you know, I saw this kind of romantic connection. But you've always kind of knocked me back on that one. I get it.
Because Trump must be the star. Yeah. He cannot. That's why it won't be Green or Lake, because they suck up too much oxygen in the room. He must dominate the space, and he doesn't really do that when it's one of them next to him. So Noam will step back and defer. So will Stefanik. As Stefanik is showing with McCarthy, she's doing that now with McCarthy, and that's, you know, what Trump is looking for. But Noam clearly has the MAGA look, you know, that Trump wants. Elise, not so much, but, you know, if you compare Elise's photos from like 3 years ago before she went full MAGA to now, like Ronna McDaniel, she's sort of changing her look.
Well, yeah, I mean, Gavin Newsom's ex-wife did exactly the same, right? This is the thing, you know. He even said, Kimberly Guilfoyle, she changed completely. She didn't just change her politics, but physically she was pretty unrecognizable. The reason I ask you about the voters is because one of my favorite things is to watch these kind of vox pops happen at these MAGA rallies and to hear what voters are thinking. And we've got some clips now of the South Dakota rally where people were, you know, enjoying the Trump atmosphere, and they were asked very specific questions. They couldn't answer any of them. I sometimes think that they've maybe been injected with something that just makes them go to rallies and they don't really have to think about it. Maybe it was in one of those vaccines. Who knows? But let's take a look at some of the action.
Well, and I've seen, excuse me, I've seen a lot of people that are still wearing masks.
Yeah, they never stopped.
Exactly.
So what are you hoping to hear from the president tonight?
You know, I never really thought about that, but I hope that he is the president in 2024 and America is going to be great again.
It's about Trump winning in 2020. Yeah.
I believe he did.
Yeah.
I do.
And some of your thoughts right now with the country.
We need Trump back. Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Why do we need President Trump back in the White House?
Just because of everything that's going on, you know, the Biden, you know, and Hunter and, you know, all that corruption. I mean, it's there.
A lot of corruption going on, of course, in the White House. And where are you from, man?
God's country.
All right, God's country. That's a good place to be from.
North Dakota.
All right, nice, very nice. So tell us about
land of the new president, right? Bergen. President Bergen?
Well, no. President Trump, of course, in 24. Well, there you go. So, no, you're good.
We don't need politicians to run this country because all they are for themselves. They're not for the people. President Trump, he doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the glory. He doesn't need to be doing this. He's doing it because he loves our country. He loves our people, and he can't stand to see where everybody is. And his plan is awesome. Everybody just needs to get on board. The way, I guess, the woke is, the progressive left. Yeah, this country is built on Christ, and we need to get back to that.
In God we trust.
In God we trust, and as soon as we get back to that, I guarantee you, God will take care of us, and will take care of everything else that's going on. We just need to believe, and a lot of people, that's basically what we That's what's getting me through it. That's what getting our family through it is our trust in God.
When Congress goes back into session, again, that's on Tuesday, September 12th. And while you're watching Congress go back to session, you can sit there and watch here. Oh, hello, Annie Trump. Are you a Trump? Is that?
Well, I want to be.
Yeah, well, you know.
Donald, I think.
We could all be cousins somewhere down the line, right?
All right. Are we on RSBN?
Yeah, we're live right now.
Nice. I want a farm all, a John Deere, a case, more oil.
Drill, baby, drill. Yes, thank you. Good seeing you. She's excited to be here. Annie Trump.
Yes.
Yep, there you go. What's your name?
Hey, I'm great tonight.
I know. You know, some people say it's Trump-tastic. Are you Trump-tastic?
I am Trump-tastic. I tell you what, the next president of the United States.
Your hat says, I stand with Trump.
You bet I do. I'd vote for that guy if he's in prison.
So would I.
Where he's at, I'll vote for that guy.
You and me both. So there's 2 votes right there. Yes. Let's see. Trump 45 because the 44 didn't work for 8 years. Okay, well, yeah, we are live on TV. You never know what you're going to see here. So let's talk about your shirt. I like that.
Yeah. Well,
So you
That's
obviously
true.
support the Second Amendment.
yes, I do.
All right. So
Are you Trump-tastic, Ron?
Yeah, I'm always Trump-tastic.
Yeah, I thought so.
You know, people ask me all the time, it's like, how are we ever going to like reason with these people, convince these people? And my short answer is you're not.
Yeah.
Like, we're not wasting our time trying to like argue with these people. It's why I don't engage with them on Twitter, on social media. I'm not interested in having, debates with them over policy, because you see it's pointless, because it's a cult. And so really the only thing I'm trying to do here with that stuff is show everybody else in the country, like, this is Team MAGA, this is Team Trump. You know, when you ask them, like, what do you want to hear? What do you want to see? You don't hear any policies. You don't hear anything substantive. It's just, he's a godly man and we got to get back to Jesus and, all this nonsense. And I just want to say to the rest of America who's not in this crew, is this really the team that you want to be on?
That first person who he asked, what are you looking forward to hearing from Trump? He's like, I hadn't really thought about that. and this is the thing. It's like this country has so much potential, right? It has some of the smartest people, but also has some of the dumbest people as well. Or everybody is represented. And you kind of want the country to be at its best. And Trump is unfortunately representing the wrong group, and I think that's what's so frustrating, is it's like, this is not the best of America. It can be better than this, because I look at it with a kind of worldwide perspective. I look at what other countries are doing and how other countries' leaders are communicating and how supporters of other countries' leaders are communicating, and it's very different. It's very different.
And let me say too, like, this is very representative. This is not like, some people are like, it's not like I'm just not picking the doctors and the lawyers and the accountants out of the crowd. This is literally like 99% of these rallies. Every single one are exactly people like this. So it's not like, oh, you're just going up to the few crazy people. No, I'm watching these live interviews that Right Side does for like 4 hours straight on a Saturday, and they're literally all like this. So these aren't like isolated people. They're not paid actors. This is literally who MAGA is.
Yeah. But, I was thinking about Trump's kids, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., they talk like this as well. They don't make any sense. They just grab this, grab that. I mean, admittedly, when Trump Jr. is talking, he's often under the influence of something late at night in his living room. But my point is that to kind of be a critical thinker is not something that really presents itself in any of their surrogates. Matt Gaetz is the same. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, some of these bills that she poses that don't actually make sense scientifically, intellectually. It's just thinking on a completely different level. And it's so frustrating because, America is not like that, in my view. It's better than that. That's why I choose to live here.
Let me say one thing about Eric Trump, because I think we might be getting to him later, but I do want to say
we've got him next, actually.
Oh, we got him next. So let me segue into I've watched like hundreds of Eric Trump interviews, and he is so like his father in this respect. Like every single Eric Trump interview is exactly the same. He's just like his dad. He tells the same stories over and over. I watch him go on certain interviews where he's been interviewed by that person 12 times, and he's literally gives the exact same interview 12 times in a row. And I always wonder, like, why don't the hosts go, you know what? You told us that last time, Eric. Yeah. You got anything new?
Well, it's the value, isn't it? They're almost getting him on because they want him. They want these stories, and it's the repetition. Again, it kind of goes back to the Hitler speeches, doesn't it? Say it enough times, and it becomes true. So in this clip, Eric is with Julie Green, who is this MAGA prophet. She, with her, she's fascinating to me. The lights are on and no one's home. Let's watch the clip and see how he tries to convince her that black people now love Donald Trump.
And now you're seeing certain segments of the population, like the African-American segment of the population, who are coming out and saying they've done the same crap that they're doing to Donald Trump. They've done it to us for years. They've indicted us for nonsense. They've thrown the legal system at us. They haven't given us a chance in hell. It's been a rigged system. They've literally made my father a martyr with certain segments of the population that they otherwise claim to own. And
why I love seeing it, because there's so many prophetic words talking about this exact very thing. What God's been saying was going to happen is now unfolding. And that's why we are all sitting there and we're just standing here and we're just like, no matter what these people are doing, they are the ones who will be exposed. No matter what they're going to do, and no matter what they're going to try to do to your dad, it will not go the way they want it. It will not go the way they want it, because God's on his side. And he's called him his David. He's his anointed, his appointed one. He said it more than once. He continually say it. I've had so many different prophetic words regarding your father. Yeah. And the Lord, I've cried because I knew the love that God has for him, the love that God has for your family. And I could just feel it. And it's like, he's not going to forsake you, and he's not going to let this continue. And no matter.
So let's get this straight. The persecution of African Americans is what Donald Trump is now experiencing, with them persecuting him.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there. I mean, first of all, you have the three whitest people in America right there talking about black people. Yeah. And probably like the last time any one of those three has been like in the presence of a black person was months ago, and maybe that was like the person that served them their dinner. So what you have there at the end of Julie Green is she's interrupting Eric, saying, because, Julie says God talks to her like almost every other day, and she has a huge following. She has like 180,000 followers on Rumble, her video channel, that almost every day, that watches her show. And she says that, God speaks to her, and God told her, she said, that Trump is his new David. So he's not the second coming of Christ. He's the reincarnation of David, who, by the way, doesn't look anything like the Michelangelo statue in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, but nevertheless, he's the new David. And she says even God has told her that Trump is going to get all the black vote this time around. So God foretold this as well. But yeah, for Eric to sit there and go in his skyscraper apartment there in office and say, these indictments are all black people love my father now because he's indicted. I mean, it's so racist too, because it's basically saying like, look, we all know black people are constantly getting arrested, so now they empathize with.
So racist. I mean, that's what I couldn't really believe, that I was hearing this, and they say it with zero irony. They're like totally committed to this theory. And again, it just goes back to the people at the rally. It's like they're living in a parallel universe. Okay, let's move on, only because we've got so much to get through today. So there's been a lot of electioneering going on at the Iowa State this was a photograph that was taken that you posted, a very kind of amusing one. I'll show it. We'll have to describe it for those who are listening to the audio podcast, but it's Donald Trump waving and a couple of people in the crowd flipping him the bird. Just tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, well, it was more than a couple. I mean, that was the iconic shot, but there was at least 50 people doing this. I think this is the only guy who gave the double bird. You know, the double bird is really is an American classic. You know, I mean, It's an American original. A single bird is nice, but the double bird really emphasizes the point here. And listen, this is what it goes down to. Jason Miller is good, really good at, and who's Trump's campaign, advance man and senior advisor. He's very good at one thing, not impregnating people. He's very good at setting up an advance. And this is where like the Trump team is so much better than the Ron DeSantis camp, because Ron DeSantis shows up at an event and it's totally not set up for him. Yeah. But when Trump shows up, like, everything is controlled. The people that are there, the setting, the environment, he's got the cheering crowds. It's all perfectly aligned for him. So when Trump first arrives at this game, where does Jason have him go first? To the agricultural fraternity, where it's all like white dudes from Iowa who are studying agriculture, all Trump people, right? So he gets this enthusiasm. So the first shots of him are like all these frat boys. We love Trump, USA, right? So then he walks to the stadium. Well, Jason controls that too. He's got his people stationed to cheer Trump as he's walking in the stadium. The problem is, once you get inside that football stadium, that Jason cannot control. So when Trump pokes his head out first before that picture and waves to the crowd, he got booed by the Iowa crowd. Then he goes up in the skybox and everybody starts shooting in the bird, and then he leaves. So what we see there is when Jason Miller sets things up and controls, it's all love, it's all adoration, and they say everybody loves Trump. But the second Trump wanders outside that protective bubble, this is what happens.
And, there is a theory, which I maintain, that Trump is not anything like as popular as he would have you believe, as the media would have you believe, because he's like an enigma. So he's created a brand, and then he has all these surrogates who are constantly repeating the Trump lines. But the reality is that it's often the same people going to the rallies and buying the merchandise. And we have been fooled as a country into thinking that the Trump movement is huge. When he lost the last election, his candidates at the midterms mostly lost. He is, and in terms of polling, he is not ahead of Biden, as he claims, in any poll. So, you really have to, because we have to set ourselves up for what might happen, aside from Trump being imprisoned or, whatever, not being on the ballot. But if he is on the ballot, there's a very good chance that he could lose by a significant margin, which he will cry is election interference and fraud and all that stuff. But we need to be ready as a society for the fact that it shouldn't be neck and neck like it was in 2016, or even in 2020, where it was still 7 million votes, but it was still close enough. It could be significantly less, and he is going to use that and weaponize that if he loses.
Yeah, his base has shrunk, but it's jacked up in intensity, and that creates the illusion that it's more than what it is.
Right.
Yes, and the media unfortunately plays into it.
Even the press that's covering him, like if you were to do, because do you remember that time he complained to Google and said that they'd rigged the search engine so that if you search for Trump, it brought up negative results. There's still results. Do you see what I mean? It's like it's still collateral. If it's got Trump in it, it still feels to the rest of us like he is popular. But actually, a lot of the noise could be unpopularity as well as popularity.
Right.
By nature of the way our media works. Tucker Carlson, now, there is a theory, which I know you hold, that Tucker Carlson could be waiting in the wings to replace Donald Trump as a candidate for 2024 and possibly, 4 years later. As a presidential candidate. This is the first time I've seen him kind of up on a stage and kind of doing a kind of rally speech. Let me show the speech, and then you can tell us all about it.
Has the governor of Texas done anything meaningful to stop that? No. The Republican governor? He's got a National Guard. He's the commander-in-chief of the National Guard, and it's Texas, so they're all large. And they have double-stack magazines in their sidearms. You think they couldn't stop that in a week if they... Of course. Just assemble along the border. We're not doing this. No, he refuses to do that. He won't do it. And it's not like no one suggested. I've suggested to him 3 times, including in private at a cocktail party in Dallas last year. What are you doing, man? Don't you have a National Guard? Why don't you seal the border? Oh, it's very complicated. No, it's not. No, it's not. If someone's trying to break into my house, it's not complicated to repel the person. Do you have a firearm or don't you? Are you willing to defend your house and your children, or aren't you? Well, it's more complicated. Really, tell me how. Speak slowly so I can understand. It's not more complicated than that. It's more dishonest than that. You're lying to me. You don't want to do it because your donors don't want you to do it. It's that simple. Greg Abbott. Liar. Liar. And worse than liar, betrayer of your own people. That's what that is. I was polite at the cocktail party, so I didn't say any of that, but I fumed internally like an Episcopalian. I thought those things.
I mean, you take this. It's just terrifying, really.
People, when he was fired, people said, well, he's not going to get any worse. He's going to go away. And the thing is, what I've seen, because I've paid attention to Tucker since he's been fired, is all guardrails are off.
Yeah.
He's gone completely off the deep end, insane with some of the stuff that he's saying and doing. I mean, he did a whole show on the fact that, Barack Obama is gay, and Michelle Obama is a man. I mean, he did a whole show on that. He's trying to interview Putin. He's just gone completely off the deep end. Now, here he is he's in Michigan doing the speech. He's attacking Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott was, if you Google like Tucker firing Greg Abbott was one of his biggest defenders. He came out and condemned Rupert Murdoch and slammed Fox he defended Tucker stronger than probably anyone that I can think of. And this is what Tucker does, stabs him right in the back for that. Thank you very much. And what Tucker is basically saying here clearly is that, and again, he uses this thinly veiled coded language that they all use, but clearly what he's saying here is that he told Greg Abbott at a cocktail party all he has to do is shoot a few migrants who are, swimming across the Rio Grande. And once he does that, they'll stop coming. That's the deterrent, that America should start shooting and killing some of these people, because he equates them to somebody who's breaking into your house.
Yeah.
And what he says is, you would shoot somebody if they're breaking in your house. Why isn't Greg Abbott shooting these migrants when they're breaking into America? That's what Tucker Carlson is saying.
Do you know, I, having worked in television, I understand that a lot of TV hosts, they actually have quite extreme views, but they are confined by the rules of television. So I'm of the opinion that he's always been as nuts as this.
Yes.
And always been as extreme and racist and xenophobic and horrific, misogynistic, all of it. But he's had to temper that whilst working for Fox, because they paid him very handsomely, and there are obviously some confines of working on network. But the moment you come off network and you get given a show on X or Twitter, whatever it's called, and you get to make these public appearances, you can open the taps. And this is what he's doing. This is who he really is. He's always been this guy.
Yeah, and he understands that he's never going to work in television again. He's been fired by 3 networks. He's been fired 3 times. And he said this before, I will never work in TV again. I'll never have a boss again. And I believe him on that. I think he relishes what he's doing now. And yes, I absolutely believe he intends to run for president in 2028. And I hope he keeps saying things like this that we can keep recording and clipping for the time when he does run, when some of this stuff will hopefully come back to haunt him.
Now, Ron DeSantis has not had a huge amount of success recently. As we know, his campaign is kind of collapsing around him, and it's been kind of an interesting fall from grace, and he really will skulk back to the Florida governorship, and I don't know how that will pan out for him going forward. But we do have this rather hilarious clip of him arriving at this Iowa State event. There's been, as I said, a lot of action in Iowa. The thing I like most about this clip is the music that the band is playing. I presume it's the band inside the tent or something that is like a wah wah, like real kind of disappointing tune as he arrives. Here it is.
And this is what stupid looks like.
And this is what stupid looks like. Did someone add that music, or was it being played? It's like Nelly the
It was
Elephant.
not added. It was at the game. The only thing that we don't know is if it was a Democrat or if it was a Trump person. It's equal money, because the Trump people are always lying in wait, waiting to ambush DeSantis, and so it very easily could have been a Trump person. Although it seems like the person is somewhat competent playing the instrument, so I'm going to say it's a Democrat. Most likely.
That's a little offensive.
But yeah, I mean, but it's even more than the music. It just shows the sheer incompetence of the DeSantis advanced team. His advanced team is wretched, because this is a huge event. There's 61,000 Iowans at this stadium. There's a reason why every candidate went to this game. So here he makes his entrance, and that's his entrance. Right. I mean, Trump arrives to 200 screaming frat boys, chanting USA. This is how DeSantis rolls in. Not one person cheering him, no signs, no supporters. And, somebody playing the sad trombone. I mean, it's a microcosm of the incompetence of the Ron DeSantis campaign.
But let's not forget that DeSantis had to fire a whole bunch of people, right? They ran out of money, and 50% of his kind of campaign team were just let go.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. I mean, the people that he has running his campaign are consultants who make money off ads. Right. So they get commissions off ads. So you don't make money off advanced stuff. You don't make money off grassroots things. You make money off ad buys. So that's where most of the money was directed, is into these ad buys that have all been, the money's been thrown away. So yeah, I mean, Trump definitely understands the value of a ground game. The problem for Trump is he doesn't have the money really to execute it. So he has to rely on volunteers. But, like we already said earlier in the show, he's got his rabid base of volunteers who will run through a wall for him. And DeSantis doesn't have that.
DeSantis was then interviewed, and we have a clip of him talking about abortion in the strangest language I've ever heard. I mean, this is not going to help his case for any supporters on either side. Let's have a listen.
But one thing that the pro-life movement is about is supporting vulnerable women. Senator Rubio has proposed the Unborn Child Care, or a Child Protection Act, that would essentially give child support from the moment of conception. Is that something you'd consider would force states to force men to give women what they're due from the moment of conception?
These men, look, most of these women do not want to have abortions, but they feel like they have no other options because they get no support. And that's because a lot of these men are nowhere to be found. They should absolutely be providing support. They should absolutely be held accountable. What we've done in Florida is we've recognized that being pro-life means for the whole kit and caboodle. So we've expanded postpartum medical care for poor women to a full year after they have a child. We've also done things to advance options for foster care and adoption, because that is something that we want to be able to foster. I think a lot of it comes down to whether women think it's financially feasible to do that. And when they don't get support from the father, then it can be over.
I've never heard abortion referred to as kit and caboodle before, and also the idea of he wants to foster fostering as well. That was kind of he just doesn't make any sense. I mean, he really doesn't have much grasp of the language.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. You're absolutely right. But two things here. Kayleigh McEnany is one of the very, very few people who has used Donald Trump and got more out of Donald Trump than Trump got out of them, and came out of it, without being indicted or ruined. She parlayed whatever it was, 6 months as press secretary into her dream job, which is her gig at Fox. That was her absolute dream job that
she's
she
very
wanted.
good at it as well. I mean, this is the thing.
Yeah.
It's a very natural fit for her.
Absolutely. And she's got the Fox News look. She's got the vibe. She's got, the Christian stuff going. Perfect for Fox. And, her little 6-month audition in the Trump administration got her that gig. She actually started that gig while she was still working in the White House, which was questionable Hatch Act violation, but nevertheless. So she really used Trump more. She got more out of Trump than he got out of her, which is rare. But I will say she doesn't really like Trump, and she is clearly a DeSantis supporter. She has not endorsed Trump. She hasn't. She won't come out and say that she's endorsing DeSantis, because I think she doesn't want to alienate her Fox viewers. But she clearly supports DeSantis. So that's number one. Number two, what DeSantis and Kayleigh are saying here reflects the Republican belief about abortion. What they believe is that the vast majority of women who choose to get an abortion are doing so for economic reasons. That if they had more money and more support during their pregnancy, they would choose not to get abortions. Now, I don't know what the polls reflect. My sense is that this is not the case, that there are many other reasons why women choose to get abortions. There's a million reasons. I don't think it's just about money. So this is the belief that if we start giving pregnant women money and we force the men who impregnated them to start paying child support during their pregnancy, this will stop abortion. This is their belief.
And this is the stuff of the Handmaid's Tale.
Yes.
I mean, this is what we've been warned about, and now it's saying it out loud, and it just makes me so sad that people like him are garnering support. Even I know he's not doing great, but this view is shared by so many governors, and so many Republican states are bringing about legislation that will follow in the footsteps of Florida and certainly roll it out nationally. And if you read the Project 2025 document, which I think I sent you, 900 pages of this plan for installing an authoritarian government, whether it be Trump or anybody else next year. Again, all this unfortunate abortion rhetoric is baked in. It's America could change. I mean, it already has with Roe being overturned, but it could change unrecognizably in next year if they are allowed to carry this through. And this is all born of the Heritage Foundation, Federalist Society, and all of these kind of lobby groups behind the scenes who are starting to kind of build up and paint a vision for America beyond 2024.
Yep, absolutely. It's all part of the culture war, and this is a big part of it. And it dovetails into them lying about Democrats' positions on abortion, saying, right. And I saw somebody push back on Chris Christie, I think on CNN, about abortion when he tried to bring up that, Democrats favor, abortion right up until the moment of birth. And somebody said, pushed back and said, that only happens in extreme cases where the mother's life is in danger and they have to choose between the life of the mother and the life of the child, and they make that decision. And she said, the numbers of those are extremely rare. So, tell me what Democrat favors unlimited abortion on demand up to moment of birth. Tell me which one says that. And number two, how many of those do you think actually happen in America? Because and I've said this before, I think on the show, it really is time for Democrats to push back on this Republican talking point that all Democrats favor unlimited abortion up to the moment of birth. It's just a disgusting thing to say, and it's definitely part of this issue.
And it's also part of the problem with having kind of white men running everything, It's almost as if DeSantis and a lot of the leaders who are promoting this language, Mike Pence and anybody else who's kind of pushing this kind of pro-life fake narrative, it's like if they had ever experienced what it is like to lose a child through the early stages of pregnancy, and I've been through this previously myself, where, late stage abortion is necessary for medical reasons, and how it devastates families, and how it's not something that you ever get over, and how you have to have your, the fetus has to have a funeral, as was the case with me. I mean, this is what we go through. This is our life experience. And it's as if these people who are kind of pushing this narrative have never either experienced it themselves or come into contact with a solitary human that has had to deal with these things in life.
I know a woman who it happened to her maybe 9 or 10 years ago, and every single year on that day she doesn't even go to work or leave the house, and she just stays home and cries.
Yeah.
So yes, for Republicans to characterize that as like some woman just doesn't want to have their kid, they don't want the responsibility.
Not a clue.
It's
Not
horrible. And Democrats need to push back on it forcefully.
Agreed. We've just seen the anniversary of 9/11 yet again, and Donald Trump always gets into hot water around this time. That famous clip of him phoning into the news network and being proud of the fact that his building was now the tallest, or the second tallest, now that the Twin Towers had collapsed, which is possibly one of the most offensive things you could say. And then obviously pretending to be down there, helping the cleanup, and pictures of superimposed. There was, I think, I've got this Carrie Lake image. Let's just talk about this for a moment, and you can explain, or if you can, about what Carrie Lake was talking about here, because this is a photo of him not at Ground Zero, but down in Wall Street, right?
Yeah, so this is sort of tiring every year to go through this, but it's Biden sort of set this off by saying that he was down at Ground Zero the next day and saw the devastation, etc. Biden was there, I think it was 9 days later. So
but I think Biden was referring to the Pentagon, which is where he was.
He may have,
and I think that's where the confusion
I think he got
came.
his syntax garbled a little bit. But
well, he's jet lagged and he's 80. But people put on social media, people put that straight. Biden the next day was at Ground Zero at the Pentagon, which was a Ground Zero.
And what I was upset about at the time was the fact that the White House didn't clarify that. I mean, that's what the White House press shop is there for.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to have, rapid reaction. That when that clip went viral hours after he said it on Fox and on right-wing media and all over, there had to have been somebody from the White House come and clarify that he was talking about the Pentagon, or he was talking about, 9 days later. Instead there's crickets, because they ignore what the right is saying, which is my criticism of this White House for 3 years now. But this photo, yes, but that feeds into the narrative of it's a completely different thing with Trump, because Trump likes to brag, that he supposedly, went there to the rescue and was saving people and sent his crew of guys in to pull people out of the rubble. All nonsense. There's no evidence that he ever did that. So that is a popular picture that they have posted for years that supposedly shows Donald Trump down there, right after the towers fell, when in fact that photo was taken a week later on the 28th, when he was outside the New York Stock Exchange, specifically to get himself photographed looking like he was there. I mean, this was a calculated move on his part to do this. He did go the day after, he went a little bit close to the Twin Towers, and he did an interview on German television. That is it. That is Donald Trump's sole involvement with getting anywhere near 9/11. So Biden sort of got his little verbiage mixed up, but the right and Trump continues to intentionally lie and perpetuate this myth that he was some kind of hero. And by the way, Rudy, who did many great things, also exaggerates his role in the danger that he faced on 9/11.
I mean, these people are cowards, and they've always been cowards. And the fact that Trump, it reminds me of his the golfing journalist who talks about Trump cheating at golf.
Yeah,
and how he has his golf cart does 30 miles
Rick
an hour
Riley.
when everybody else's does 15 miles an hour, so he can get there first and move the ball. You know, if you are the type of person that is a sore loser or a manipulator, you're going to apply that to everything. And we've seen that with Donald Trump. You know, if you are so cheap of mind that you will lie about your involvement in the aftermath of 9/11, what else are you going to lie about?
Yeah.
Everything. Winning an election when you didn't.
Absolutely. It's also why Trump likes to surround himself with like military guys, police, fire, big tough guys. And he talks about big, strong guys because Trump knows he's nothing like them. He has no physical courage. He's never done anything in his life, anything remotely like what they do every day. So he has this sort of jealousy and admiration for them deep down. But he also kind of wants to hang around those people to kind of, and his Don Jr. does the same thing, to sort of act like he's one of them,
But the fact that you and I can see through it, and I'm sure most people watching us today can see through it. I mean, why because I mean, that motorcade that he had when he went to turn himself in at Fulton County, I mean, apparently a lot of that was police officers who, are Trump supporters, and they wanted to be there. They chose to be there to support Donald Trump. Why do they not see through this? Why are they so into it?
What they like about Trump is that it doesn't matter what they do, he's going to back them.
Right.
Like no matter how terrible they do, whatever they do, Trump will always back them unless they're, arresting him or trying to defend the Capitol. But the point is like, any kind of excessive force, thuggery, on the part of police misconduct, Trump has shown for 40 years, going way back, that he will always defend police misconduct.
Right. And this Central Park 5, Derek Chauvin, the whole thing.
Many examples.
Right. Let's talk about Lauren Boebert for a moment. She is... I am so drawn to her. I don't know why. Because she is so disgraceful, disgusting in so many ways, and yet I just can't. It's like McDonald's. I just can't seem to get enough of these stories. Well, she's now gone to see a production of Beetlejuice, which is a Broadway show that is touring. I actually went to see it myself in California recently. It was one of the best shows I've seen for a while. And in fact, there was an elderly couple who came and sat next to me, and they were complaining out loud during the first half of how woke the show was, which was very funny. But I bet to myself, I was like, they're definitely not coming back for the second half. They did not come back for the second half. I'm surprised they made it all the way to the interval. But the show is, modern and funny and makes lots of kind of occasional political references. So Lauren Boebert was she went to see it. But she also caused a bit of a disturbance there, didn't she? Tell us what happened.
Oh, well, that's not the picture that goes with the story.
I know. I don't know why they've used that one. I do actually have the video of her being escorted out, but I'll show that in a minute. Just tell us what happened. So
it's funny that you say that it was a woke show, because obviously she loved the show, and so she's there with this guy who's a divorced, dad, and he owns a bar in Aspen, and she's always saying, her opponent, Adam Frisch, is from Aspen, and she always puts him down that he's from the hoity-toity rich Aspen, and she's from rural Western Colorado, and he's from ritzy Aspen. When her new boyfriend, who she's apparently been dating for a few months now, is from Aspen, owns a bar in Aspen, hosted a drag show at the bar in January, and now she's having a great time at a quote-unquote, woke musical. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on here with Lauren. She also has a new post-divorce, I'll just say look, shape to her after her divorce, which is probably makes her new boyfriend happy. And so, yeah, she's vaping, she's singing, she's dancing. And what she says is, her defense is, well, I was just having a good time. Well, No, I mean, there was probably, I don't know, 400 or 500 people in that audience. It was a huge audience.
I think more, probably 1,200 or more.
Maybe more. How come she was I'm sure they were all having a good time too. How come she's the only one that was removed? The only person who was so obnoxious that she had to be removed from the show is a member of Congress in attendance. And so the good thing about this, to me, from the politics perspective, is since Congress has been in recess for the last month or so, Lauren has really tried hard to work her district, to go to all these little small events and try and show that she really cares and she's one of them and she's one of the people. She's tried for the first time since she's been in Congress to really focus on like small constituent stuff, like most members of Congress do, but she's never done before. And that caused Politico to even do an article today about that, about the fact that she's now doing this stuff. But this incident completely undercuts the entire narrative that she's been trying to build, that she's changed. Her narrative is, I've changed. I've learned my lesson. I get it. I'm one of the people. I need to be in the district with my people. Instead, where is she? She's in Denver with a guy from Aspen who hosts drag shows, getting kicked out and giving the middle finger to security on the way out.
Yeah, it was very messy. I mean, it kind of proves a point that all of this outrage, this kind of MAGA Republican outrage, is fake.
It's fake.
It's not based in their true beliefs. It's totally hypocritical. They'll be anti-drugs and doing cocaine. They'll be anti-abortion and paying for them. You know, and no one seems to be really exposing that faux outrage, like very specifically, apart from your good self, of course, and us on this show. But the hypocrisy is throughout everything, and so that's why it frustrates me that this whole division, polarization of American politics, it's all built on nothing, because actually everyone's doing everything all the time. They're just putting out a kind of a front, presenting an image of Republican Christian perfection, and yet, are you kidding me? It's like you've gone to see Beetlejuice. Let me show this this clip.
Oh, okay, all right,
okay. So this is her being asked to leave for vaping. So you can actually see her sitting in the seat. You can see how huge the auditorium is. So actually,
he's got her purse.
Right.
So she doesn't carry her own purse.
So they're escorted out, leaving 2 empty seats. But incidentally, this show is, everyone dresses up for this show. They certainly did here in California, in kind of, because it's from the, the Beetlejuice movie. And here they are.
She dressed up all right.
Yeah, she is certainly dressed up, yeah. Yeah, she really has changed, hasn't she?
Yes.
So, and this is her in the foyer with a carpet straight out of a 1972 sitcom.
Yeah, and that sign says, I think, help us divert waste, which is appropriate as she's now pulling her dress over her breasts.
Yeah.
And giving the middle finger to the security.
How lovely! It's so
what a
funny
great look.
She
is again.
It's such an informal show. I mean, you really do have to behave quite disgracefully to be thrown out of Beetlejuice. I can understand being thrown out of the opera or the ballet, but to be thrown out of Beetlejuice the musical is. What is it that she was like? Obviously vaping.
That part right there,
vaping?
By the way, is she said, "Do you know who I am?" That's what she was saying.
That old line.
Yeah.
And off they go into the sunset. And then they've even
two lovebirds.
Yeah. They've even included footage of the exterior of the theater, and you can see them then kind of on their own trotting off into the sunset and feeling utterly humiliated. I mean, look, we're making a whole thing out of nothing really, but she made a whole thing out of nothing too, right? I mean, this is the reality of this.
Here's the thing. If you add up in Lauren Boebert's life all of the times that the police were called to intervene in her life, from the time that she was 15 all the way up through her owning her restaurant, where they were there many times, incidents with her husband and kids, incidents with her kids. Literally, she has had about 25 police contacts in her life. Most people have one or two.
Yeah.
She literally has the police involved in her life on a monthly basis.
Let's. We've only got a few minutes left, so I want to talk about briefly about Alex Jones. He has yet again gone on Russian state television, and they often do this, don't they? They take kind of right-wing and far-right propaganda that is put out like news, so like Alex Jones's show and certainly stuff on Fox, and then they put it out on Russian state TV to give the impression that the US is aligned with Putin and Putin is aligned with the US, and that they are kind of more allies than enemies, but obviously the reality couldn't be further from the truth. We can't show the video because, unfortunately, Alex Jones got himself banned from YouTube. But there is a tweet here that Julia Davis posted saying that Alex Jones was interviewed and went into a meltdown over technical difficulties. This footage was later deleted from the show, but you can see it here. Jones cried, complained, and almost vomited. Here are some of the cringiest moments, which we can't show, but just briefly tell us what went on.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a calculated thing by the Russians. So Jones goes on there and says, look, the American people are with Putin. They love Putin. The majority of Americans love Putin, and they hate Joe Biden, and they don't agree with this war. They hate NATO, he said. And they think that Vladimir Putin is being treated badly, et cetera, et cetera. And then the host will say, look, everybody, this is what America really believes. This is what America really thinks. They really do love Putin. This man is a hero. And it's funny because here is Alex complaining about like the persecution of the Biden administration, how they persecuted him, and how the Sandy Hook lawsuit against him. When, if you go to Moscow and you openly speak out against Putin or the war, you're going to be clapped in a prison. I mean, maybe the irony of that gets lost, or maybe they don't know or don't care. And then finally, Alex concluded this interview, where he was clearly drunk, by the way, by saying that maybe he wanted to go to Russia, and he wanted to go there to see Russia for himself, because he's never been there, and to see what this utopian white Christian paradise is really like. And I absolutely encourage Alex to do that and spend quite a lot of time, hopefully not just escorted around by Putin, but actually go and speak to the Russian people and find out what they really think.
He's starting to look more like a Russian as well. Have you noticed? Like, he's kind of growing his beard out, and I can imagine him in a big leather coat with a kind of sheepskin lining and a vodka in hand. I think he's kind of slowly becoming one. Let's finish talking about Mike Lindell, because he, as we know, has been struggling with business, laying people off, selling sewing machines and stuff to try and recoup some revenue to pay legal fees. Here he is giving evidence, right? He's on the stand. Just tell us, before I show the clip, tell us what we're about to see here.
Yeah, so this is the Dominion lawsuit, and Mike has given several interviews after this clip was released and tried to explain it. What he said was going on is, the Dominion lawyers were antagonizing him, and he said Eric Coomer, who is the CEO of Dominion, was sitting behind the lawyers making faces at him and laughing at him. So this you can't see on the camera, but Mike is saying like this is the reason why he got upset. Mike has since also blamed the CIA for leaking. He claims that the CIA is behind leaking this deposition. So yeah, this is the lawyer sort of referring to his pillows as lumpy, and Mike just completely losing his mind. But the reason why this is kind of key, and the reason why Mike is so embarrassed by this, is Mike presents this sweet, nice, kind Christian man, recovered drug addict persona. But here you see what he really is like behind the scenes.
Okay, and I'm not asking about the lumpy pillow calls.
No, they're not lumpy pillows. That's not what they call on. Okay, that when you say lumpy pillows, now you're an asshole. You got that? You're an asshole, Mike, is what you are. Mike, no, sorry. He's an asshole. No, he's an ambulance chasing asshole. That's what you are. Lumpy pillows, kiss my ass. Put that in your book. No, they answer anything, any problem customer that wants to reach Mike Lindell. Those are the ones. I want to talk to Mike Lindell. I want to talk to Mike Lindell. They send them to here and they go, or they call about maybe they didn't get their pillow on time because of the FedEx or whatever. Well, we'll cover them even though it could be somebody else's fault. Nobody called because of a lumpy pillow. But good one though.
You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
What I'm saying
obviously you don't have a My Pillow too. You don't, do you?
What I'm saying is, Mr. Lindell.
Asshole. What? Go ahead. No, I'm pissed.
I understand.
Yeah, go. When you're saying what?
I apologize for the language used by Mr. Lindell in that clip. Never say lumpy. Clearly, this is a trigger word for Mike Lindell. If you've built a pillow business and someone says lumpy, it's the ultimate insult.
It's always been my theory that one of the reasons why MAGA people are so irritable and cranky is because they're sleeping on these horrible pillows of his and they don't get a good night's sleep.
Well, it's because they're lumpy. Okay, well, listen, that was certainly an amusing place to end this conversation. I really feel, I do feel sorry for Mike Lindell sometimes, but I think you're right. He has presented himself as this kind of sweet guy, and actually he has a side to him. And this goes back to what I was saying about faux outrage, whether it be about election fraud or whether it be about abortion or any of the kind of hot button issues. That so much of it is hypocrisy, and he is another perfect example of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's all over the place. He's insane. And the fact that, the good thing is so many Republican candidates who run for office tout his endorsement and put it on their, websites and stuff. Hey, I say, let him go ahead and do it, because almost everyone who he did endorse lost in 2022.
Yeah. And as for that conference that he had last week or a couple of weeks ago now, where he was going to be revealing all of this evidence of election fraud, and that obviously came to nothing. So, he continues to disappoint. And for some reason, he doesn't seem to realize that he is, again, a bit like Trump with Infrastructure Week. It's like it never comes. Whatever it is that he's selling, it just never comes. And maybe that's the plan. You just keep pushing these conspiracy theories until such time as the election comes, and you hope that the noise does enough damage to the vote.
Well, he's got new pillows coming out. My Pillow 2.0. Oh. So, it's the same thing. You're always coming up with something new. The old ones are lumpy. Now we got 2.0.
Okay, I'll go order mine right away. Ron, thank you so much. Great to see you here on Uncovered. And don't forget, if you want to listen to the audio version, then you can download the podcast wherever you get yours. And if you want to watch the show over, then it is available to you straight away here to play again. So I'm going to go now and have a little lunch and watch the show back just to see how great you were, Ron. Have a great week.
See you.